shame to find you.
Thank you for joining us today. This is the Humble Heartbeat Speaks. We are having a wonderful guest that Chrissy has created for us to come on and tell us about her fantastic opportunities and things that she's doing out here in life. But welcome. Hey, Chrissy, tell me about your guest, Kara.
Keisha, we got one of my girls on today. She is my girl. I met her we went to a church together and then we left that church, and then she started singing at retreats at another church that I was going to, retreats and conferences. And her voice is simply divine, and her ability to write songs is also simply divine. She's just an amazing person, and I'm really excited to have her here today so we can just pick her brain about music and what that looks like, especially coming from she works a lot with retreats and conferences to build, and then she also comes and performs. And so we definitely want to talk to her about that. But I am so honored to have Miss Kara Jones with us today. Hey, Kara, how are you?
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we're so excited. So I want to start with saying, I don't know if you guys remember this from season 1, but we featured Kara as one of our songs. And but here's what you don't know. I contacted her and I said, hey, girl, we are featuring musicians on our podcast at the end. Do you have a song you want to submit? Because she sang this one song that she performed actually, she sent it to me beforehand and then she did it at a retreat. But I fell in love with this song. I was like, I have to use this song. This song is really good. So, Keisha, I don't know if you remember when we went to film my documentary, I had 2 songs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Curated. Yes.
Right. One was Ron King, who we had. The other one was Kara Jones. And she was the one that when we were filming deep into the trauma, Kara, they played your song to just like bring us back down and mellow us out and be like, okay, let's go on. So that was Kara's song. So when I approached her for the podcast this season, she said, well, I don't really want to submit a song I've already done. How about I write a song for your podcast? And so I was like, girl, you do you. You just do you, girl. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Go ahead and do it. I'll wait. We got 5 episodes to go yet. It gives you some time to get it done. And I wasn't sure how long it was going to take her, but she had it back pretty quickly. So we want to thank you for that, Kara. We told you we all love the song, and we keep that on our podcast. It's also on my playlist on YouTube.
Yep.
But I wanted to, girl, I always got to be surrounded by music. You know my love for music. But I want to talk to you. So how did you get into music? Did it start when you were a young child, or did you play a band in school? How did that start out for you?
Yeah, it's wild. I haven't really had a time in my life where music wasn't the center, wasn't the focus. It's one of my mom's favorite anecdotes from when I was a child was that I could fully sing the alphabet song by 18 months. And she said that I didn't even mess up the elemental P part that most kids do. So, singing has just been, a beacon for me in my life. And even as a kid, I was doing a lot of stuff in choirs. I did some auditioning for plays and stuff. And so music has just always been a huge part of my life.
And now, do you play any instruments?
I do. I play piano. I'm not the most skilled, but I have enough knowledge to be able to write music. And, it's definitely broadened my songwriting abilities. And then also being able to mentor other musicians and singers because I can, know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. If a note is off or whatever, I know I can be like, oh, well, you need to do this. So It's definitely expanded my knowledge base as well.
Yeah, I knew the answer to that, but because I've seen you play it, but that's just not fair. Now, have you had have you been trained or are you mostly self-taught?
I'm mostly self-taught. I did take some classes in college. I did some, like choir classes. And then obviously through school, I was in a lot of different choirs. I did take some amateur piano lessons when I was a child. But if I'm being honest, I only did them for about 6 months and I just couldn't get on it. Like,
really?
It was too technical for me and it was just not my favorite. And then I had a really great mentor named Lauren when I was really coming into the church scene. I was, mainly singing with them, working on harmonies. And she said, I had a really, she told me I had a really good gifting for working with younger singers. And at the time, my sister and brother-in-law were actually leading the youth, and they didn't have any kind of youth choir or anything like that, a worship group. So I kind of stepped into that role before I was really ready, but it gave me a lot of hands-on experience. And I was like, how am I going to lead a worship group if I don't play an instrument? Like, there's just no way to do that. And so Lauren kind of took me under her wing and she was like, chords are really easy to learn. If you can learn how to play chords like a simple, C, A minor, F song, G, like the basic chords, you can play half of the songs we do. And so I started doing that. I learned those chords and I played like 5 songs that only had those chords in them. And they were very simple. And the good thing is a lot of Christian music is very repetitive. And so it was easy for me to kind of learn and teach some of the girls I was working with how to sing and harmonize and stuff like that. And so that's kind of how I got started into worship leading.
I love it. Like, I had a friend when I was in grade school and she played the piano and her parents were piano teachers. And I'm like, I'm going to learn this instrument. Well, no, that just was not going to happen. I was one of those like ting, 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 ting kind of people. And they're like, no, we're done here. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go play something else. Like, but I could sit and listen to them for hours. There is just something about piano music that, I don't know, it just like reverberates with your soul in that. So I love that you are like, hey, I had to learn this to help the youth, right? Yeah. I know, knowing you, being a good friend of yours, youth is very important to you. We've had multiple discussions about that. Yeah. So how do you really, because I feel like the youth have progressed in certain ways and not always in a beneficial way, right? Youth as a whole, not any particular person. How do you approach that with them? Do you think it's easier to introduce music to them because music is just like its own language, really? Like it just seems like, music's going to grab a majority of them at one point, but how do you approach that? And what do you do when you meet some resistance?
Yeah. So you hit it right on the head when you said music language is universal, right? Every teenager that I've ever met loves music in some way, and maybe not the typical, genre of worship music or country or rap or, they're all over the place. Right. So it's finding the music that connects to them. And we're in such a cool time that worship music has expanded so much. When I was growing up or when you guys were growing up, there was one type of worship music and that's what you got. and I
grew up with, not everyone's Grant, Michael W. Smith, those. So their music was a little more universal, but mainstream. Yeah. And I think but different from today's worship music for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, worship music has expanded so much that there are subgenres within the worship Christian community, and kids that connect more with hip hop or rap have specific artists that they can listen to, pop stars. You know, one of my favorite influences is Lauren Daigle. You can hear her songs on mainstream media, not just Christian music anymore. So I feel like it has just transcended into even more universal language for kids to be able to connect with. And honestly, I mean, you're going to meet resistance in anything you do, whether it's working with youth or working with adults. I mean, I've worked with plenty of adults where I've met resistance. So I think it's all just about having the right attitude and the right mindset of, you know, everyone has their own stuff they're going through. And there's always going to be some kind of trauma or issue that comes up along the way. And you just got to deal with it in the time.
Yeah, that's true. Like, you do meet resistance, but you know, I love a lot of genres of music. People that know me know that. You know, I love Christian music, worship music. I also love rap. I like hip hop, and I love heavy metal too. And then, you know, I have opera and Italian. Sometimes I understand what they're saying, but most times I don't. But, you know, but what you said is true. It is like a universal language, because even though I don't know what they're saying, it's like I can feel what they are saying, if that makes any kind of sense at all. Like, I just know, like, oh, this is such a tearjerker song. And then other ones I'm like, yeah, let's get to the beat. I have no idea what they're saying, but you know, I need like the translating headphones when I'm listening to music, so I could be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be listening to this song. You know, because you get those, you know, I think when you're growing up in your time and you like your songs, you like those songs, right? We see this a lot now. They're going back and doing like re-listening to 80s and 90s songs and realizing that what we thought they were talking about isn't really what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, I'm like, okay, I understand that. But for me, it's the staying power of the song. You know, we're in 2026 and you're still talking about 80s and 90s music, which is what I grew up in, 80s and 90s music. So it was amazing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that's what that song talked about. But I'm still going to listen to it because I really like it.
For sure.
I want to touch a little bit on worship music.
Okay.
Specifically about when you are a part of a worship band.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's things there that people don't know about.
Yeah.
And they don't know like the struggles of what it takes. You know, we had talked, you had some church hurt over worship, being in a worship band. And I get that. But what I would love for you to talk about is, one, the preparation it takes to actually be part of the worship band. Because I think people are like, oh, they just show up on Sunday an hour early and boom, they're ready to go. And hey, they sounded great for an hour's practice. You know what I mean? Like that seems to be what people think. Now, we all know that's not true because we've all been around that. But talk about that. And then I'd also love to get your thoughts on when there is discord within the worship band itself. Like, how do you handle that as a musician? And hopefully you're not the one causing the discord. You're not. I know that for a fact you're not. But I mean, as a musician, how do you handle that, knowing that, hey, we all have to come together for 6 hours and perform on stage, so these people don't know that I'm not even in the green room with you when we're all in there waiting because I just don't want to see you right now.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? But definitely touch on, like, what is the preparation like when you are part of a worship band? And how do you, if you're not the worship leader and you know things are being played not correctly, how is that handled? And do you speak up? Or do you just like, hey, that's their thing? So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So it's funny because there's so much that goes into the dynamics of a worship band that nobody knows, right? You show up on Sunday, you see, you know, these people singing this beautiful song, you're getting into it. That's great. That's what people that have never been part of, you know, I mean, really any role that you play in the church, takes preparation, right? You don't just show up and you're there. Like any sermon, any worship music, I mean, even greeting, like there's some form of preparation there, right? So I will say I've been part of a lot of different churches, and it's different with every church. And I think honestly, it's different for every person, just because, there were times in my journey where I wasn't putting a lot of prep into stuff. I was kind of just showing up and going to practice and being like, hey, God put me here, so I must be, obviously when I was much younger and had not been as humbled as I have been now.
That's when God will be like, this is a lesson.
Yeah, literally. So, but yeah, I think for me, a lot of preparation is more about heart than anything else. Like I do a lot of prep, like I guess you could say like body prep, as far as like singing the actual song, practicing, doing harmonies. A lot of people don't realize like how difficult harmonies are to do, like, especially when you have multiple different harmonies going, and to stick to your part and not go with the popular part, the melody, you know what I mean? So all of that takes time and preparation. And then obviously most churches have a midweek practice and a Sunday practice. So you're taking time out of that. But that's just if you're on team. That doesn't include leading at all. Like, I have been on team, and then I've been a leader, and as much like actual prep it goes into being on team, doing leadership is another level. Like, when I was first starting leading, I was so just like consumed with heart prep. And like, okay, how can I connect with the music? How can I, make sure that my headspace is right, my heart space is right? Because it's a bigger responsibility than most people give it credit for. Like, you're not just getting up there and singing a song and playing, singing the right notes. You're trying to usher in a presence of worship. And so there's a certain responsibility to that. You want people to feel engaged. You want people to be able to connect with God. And so if I'm off my game, that affects other people's worship. And I never want to be in a place where I'm affecting someone else's worship. Right. And so that really weighed heavy on my heart, especially when I started leading, to really make sure that I was in a good headspace to be leading. And so it's complicated for sure. I think that kind of plays into the discord thing that you mentioned, because there are going to be moments where you don't get along with everyone, right?
Right.
I mean, we're human, we're flesh before we are, spirit sometimes, and
so true.
Can get under your skin for sure. And I think those moments are just one of those things where you leave it in the green room. You gotta, really just take a second and remember why you're there. Because there's a reason. Everyone has a reason why they're worshiping, why they are leading. And so that's one of those moments of like, man, that person really just got under my skin. But at the same time, I'm not going to let that affect someone else's kingdom journey, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. And so that's one of the hardest things I feel like as a leader, to be able to kind of step outside of yourself and realize it's not about you. It's about him. It's about them.
It is like we talked about last season. We did an episode about ego and how it can get in the way. And this isn't anything to do with what you said, but how you said you have to leave it in the green room. It's like we said, you have to leave the ego at the door.
Yeah.
Or God can't get through there. So, in that essence, it's the same. Like, you have to leave it in the green room because God's presence has to be there. And people know, like, people in the audience know if something's going on within band members. I mean, it's either something you pick up on,
Yeah.
or like I watch, when I'm not, I don't really sing with my eyes closed because I usually know the lyrics anyways. But I watch things and you can pick up, like, people have tells that they give. So that's so true. But I'm glad you talked about that, because I really do feel like people are like, oh, they just show up. But, I've been in there on weeknights and I'm like, wait, that's the band. and so, it can feel like a whole nother job, because you're constantly going there and preparing. And then you have the whole mental space you have to get in and just that flipping back and forth. But I'm glad you talked about that. And one thing you also do is you perform for a lot of women's retreats and conferences. I've attended many that you have come to, and you travel great distances to get to them at times.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Like, really, I'm curious, how do you prepare for the conference yourself? Like, does it involve you? Because I know you can hold some pretty long notes. I've been there. I've heard you do it. Like, I'd love to know, like, how do you control your breathing through that? I've always wondered about that for people that can really extend those notes. I'm like, I would pass out because I would not be able to breathe right now. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. But also, how do you pick the music? Is that something you work together on, other music? And this is just me wanting to know. But how do you talk them into using your own music versus you doing cover? I call them cover songs of other artists, because you write tremendous music. And so I'm always, when I'm listening to you, I'm like, that's a Kara Jones original. Know that. So talk to us a little bit about that. And then also, like, what does that do for you, being in the room of just all women? Because we know sometimes women can be catty, but I've been at some of these retreats and conferences that you've played at, and you can really shift the mood and you really influence the room. It's almost like you draw them into, okay, we're going to put that out there and I'm going to draw you in over here. So talk to us a little bit about that, Kara.
Yeah. So I have to give props to your sister, Carrie, because she really brought me into the world of retreats and, worship nights, conferences, all of that stuff that I've done with, sister to sister. And everything has kind of channeled through that ministry. And it's been a godsend for me, honestly. I think when you're in a situation where you're part of a church where maybe there is that church hurt going on, it's so nice to have an outlet like that, to be able to really genuinely worship with people that want to be there, that want to work with you, that, believe in you. And I mean, you and Carrie both have believed in me from the beginning. And it's something that everyone needs, right? Everyone needs someone in their life to just believe in them. And I think
supportive. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think in worship ministry too, specifically, sometimes it's hard to separate technical stuff from belief and from encouragement and stuff like that. There's a lot of criticism, right? When you're in a performance-based role, there's a lot of technical criticism. And I think sometimes people forget about the heart.
I agree.
We want this to sound good. We don't want anything to mess up the flow of worship so that people can really get into it. And I totally understand that, especially being a leader, because I want every performance to go great. But at the end of the day, the people that are there are just as much involved in the worship as the people that you're worshiping with. So I think that some leaders tend to forget about that. And it's been really cool to have an avenue where, everyone involved is literally just going to worship and, wants to fulfill that with women. There's something different about being in a a church with all women worshiping. It's just different. And I don't know if it's something to do with, we've all gone through similar things, similar traumas and stuff like that. Or maybe there is a certain sensitivity or femininity to the worship. It's just different, right?
It's a no judgment zone. I think that's what I call it. Yeah. For when we're worshiping, I always say it's the no judgment zone, because when I'm there, I can be more free. I can be more, and I don't care what other people are doing. I'm focusing on me. And so, if I'm using my hands or if I'm sobbing or whatever, and sometimes they're tears of joy, not unhappy tears, of a breakthrough or any of those things. And people look at you like, what is going on over there? And you're like, I'm good. I'm really good.
I'm in the moment.
Yeah, I get caught up in the moment. And and all of those things, the music is so inspirational, but the connection is what really gives you the height. And I think the freedom to let go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, I've been extremely blessed to be able to work with some amazing women. And, it's funny that you brought up cattiness, because I feel like I've had less discord and cattiness on women teams than I have on teams where there was more of a mixed dynamic. And
interesting.
It's funny because I don't know if that is a coincidence or not, because honestly, a lot of the projects I've been involved in, I've gotten to choose the team. So I've been really lucky in that I have worked with a lot of really amazing musicians, a lot of really amazing singers, and I've gotten to choose a lot of the teams. So I don't know if that was just like God prompting to know who would be best to be on the team. But even in, our last worship night, we did a huge collaboration with a lot of different musicians. And I want to say we had 8 or 9 musicians, and including singers,
big collaboration,
and not all of those were, brought in by me. Like there was a lot, at the church itself, and we did a collaboration, and it was so cool because I know you were there, Chrissy. Were you there, Kasia?
No, she was not.
But we only had, I want to say, 3 practices before the day of leading up to it. So we met once a month because half of us lived in more of like a southern Ohio, and then half of us lived in Columbus. And so we only could meet once a month. And so we had about 3 practices before the day of practice. And the way that we just clicked was incredible.
It all came together.
That was a God thing. There's no other way to describe it. How else can you just randomly pick, 8 or 9 musicians that have never performed together? We had people from different churches that had never, that were just kind of thrown into a room, and I gave them so many songs. It was a worship night, and we had a huge set list. It's by far the biggest set list I've ever done as a leader, and
it was a lot
on team. We even cut a song, so there was more that we cut because we just ran out of time. But it was incredible, and everyone worked so hard, and we had moments where I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to work. But it all came together in a way only God can. And it was an incredible night. But yeah, a lot of prep went into that. Stuff that people would never even think of. Like, okay, so I told you that we practice 3 months in advance, a month at a time. What people don't realize is Carrie and I started planning this a year in advance.
Yeah.
We we started working on all the details, the songs, everything like that a year in advance. And I actually got to work with an incredible mentor on it. We collaborated on a lot of the songs too. And she was so helpful because that was the biggest event I've ever done before. And she kind of, helped steer me in the right direction of like, oh, this song is great, but does it speak to the women that you are? She helped me really think about my song choices in a way that were true to what I was wanting to do and the vision of the conference. And how the worship would play out. And also thinking about, okay, are these songs generational? Are these songs multicultural? Are these songs, are they going to speak to every woman? Because at the end of the day, we want every woman to have that experience.
Right.
And so it was a cool experience in general, just like setting all of that up.
It was a large event. I mean, it was large. They ran out of tissues. That's how moving it was. And like you see all these women digging in their purses for tissues and just like the elbow bump going down, like passing the tissue. So it was an amazing event. And I love how you went in that. And I know you did mix in some of your own music.
Yeah.
So were you just like, hey, I wrote a song that will speak to all this. Like, how do you approach them about that? Because mostly they want you to cover other songs, that you hear on Sundays and on the radios. But how did you approach like, oh, I have a song that, would work for this?
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of that comes with an incredible planning team, right? So we actually did a retreat leading up to up to that worship night a year in advance. And we literally got together, said, what can we do? And we worshiped, and I brought my piano, and that was one of the songs that I played. And everyone at the end of the song was like, you got to do that song. Like that has to be involved in the worship night. And it was such a like cool and humbling moment. It made me have the belief in myself to be like, okay, this doesn't just sound good to me. Like,
right.
Other people want to hear my music. And I think too, when you're an artist, most artists specifically are very sensitive. At least I know I am. And so for the longest time, I was like, no one wants to hear my music. Like, come on, this is amateur hour over here. And
no,
who, just because a song speaks to me or maybe one other person, is it going to speak to a room full of women? And, and it was really just pressed upon me and the other women at the retreat that song needed to be there. And so honestly, that's how the majority of my songs have kind of come into the fold. Either I or team members have said this song needs to be heard. And it's been a kind of like God gut feeling. And like I said, I've been really lucky with the teams that I have worked with, especially with Sister to Sister, and that they have given me a lot of freedom to kind of choose the songs. And I've worked with a lot of the song choices for different events have been collaboration song choices. But at the end of the day, the majority of the songs were my final say, just because I was leading it. So a lot of the songs that were on there were thrown in by other people, but it was one of those things where, it's my call. And it all just kind of worked out that way. I mean,
I know I'm always like dropping Kara Jones song nuggets in people's ears. Hey, I got a song I need you to hear. Or you'll send it to me and I'll be like, forward. Like, you need to hear this song, right? I'm always for that. So as I said earlier, you have songs where you hold a note pretty long.
Yeah.
At least it seems long to me. I mean, it might not be to you, but to me, it's like, so talk about how do you prepare for that? Because I know I said like I would just pass out because like is there special breathing techniques you have to do? Or are you mentally telling yourself, I got 10 more seconds, 10 more seconds? Like, how do you approach that when you're on the stage?
Yeah, so I think it's funny that one of the things you asked early on in the episode was about, technical training. Some of that is just, I was raised in that choir technical, they taught us how to breathe kind of thing.
Right.
Some of it, though, is in the moment, like when you're learning a new song or just practicing for the first time, you have to pick your moments when to breathe, right? And so if I know, okay, I have a long note coming up, I'm going to time my breath to a good spot to where, okay, I know I can hold my breath out this long if I breathe here. And sometimes it doesn't always work. And that's why it's always good to have like people on background vocals. But it's all kind of just like feeling it out. And, I think practice is a huge proponent of like how stuff gets to where it is, because when you hear a new song, you're not going to know when to breathe. Like you just have to kind of feel it. And so practicing that song over and over, and even like, a huge thing when we're on stage from a physical aspect, we're standing the whole time, and a lot of it we're moving. And so you have to be able to, have the breath there. And a big part of that is practicing before and trying to, be like performance ready and not just like practicing.
So do you like practice that in your living room? You're like, okay, I know at this point I'm gonna have to move across the stage and we're moving. So I'm just gonna practice in my living room or wherever, moving around and still singing, holding a mic or acting like I'm holding a mic. Like, is that some of the preparation that goes into that? Because I can't imagine it's like easy to be singing a song, walking across the stage, having to avoid all the equipment, all the wires, not falling on yourself or falling into someone else, or walking off of the stage, because some people get pretty close to the edge of the stage.
Yeah.
And so like if you're practicing that, like, do you have stuff laying on the floor where you're like, okay, this is where the wires would be? And so then it just becomes like muscle memory. It's like, I practice this, I know what I'm doing.
Yes and no.
Or are you just like, I'm going to go do it that day and hope for the best?
Well, so part of it really is depending on where the venue is. Hopefully you get to practice at the venue at least once or twice before the day of, right? Because then you get a feel for the stage, the room, like where you can move, where your setup's going to be. That's always the goal. It doesn't always happen that way. So it's hard to really pre-practice that stuff. But I think part of it too is just like when you've been doing worship as long as I have, you get used to the stage feel. Like you get to know, okay, I need to be careful here because there's a lot of wires. Like you kind of get the feel of what a typical stage setup is. But yeah, I mean, there are times where I'm like, whoop, shouldn't have done that. Maybe I'm going to back up a little bit. I mean, this chord doesn't go that long. Okay. And you just kind of have to play it off in the moment and, and realize that you're at a church and it's a forgiving audience. So hopefully no one noticed.
They're just like, oh, I don't think that was that really part of the segment. And it's funny because I also don't think a lot of people know how hot it is up there. Like, I know Keisha and I are both speakers. We've spoken on stages and it's like, I am about to sweat an ocean up here. And I know when I did my documentary, like you're sitting right there, all these lights are on you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to need someone to bring me some more Lumi deodorant because while it's supposed to last 3 days, I'm going to be lucky to make it 3 hours under all these lights. So does that affect your performance at all? Like, just, it's so hot. And well, obviously, you can't be up there in shorts and tank tops. So, you got to dress for where you're at. So how does that affect your performance? Because I know for me, I was like, I'm going to need some water on standby.
Yeah, for sure. And if you notice, like, I feel like most people on stage try to hide it, but we have water up there. Like we're not cold turkey in it up there. But
Right.
I think part of it, it's funny because, I'm a curvier girl. Like you get my drift. And so a lot of people probably think I'm non-shape. You have to be somewhat in shape to be able to lead worship because you're moving a lot, you're standing a lot, you're breathing a lot. And so it does get hot up there. You got to try to dress for, there's a lot of people you won't see wearing sweaters is all I'm saying.
Right.
Light layers.
I had a jumpsuit on, and I was like, oh my. I wanted to be like, when it was over, I told Keisha, like, it's a good thing I wasn't at a venue of someone I knew, because I was like, I wanted to be like, in Flashdance where she's on the chair and she pulls that down, like all this water comes down. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need a Flashdance moment. Like, I am so hot right now. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, I don't think people know that. It is very hot.
Yeah.
When you're under, because you have lights everywhere. I mean, I give it to musicians, and I'm like, man, you guys got it going on. So something
and we
else
planned for that too. Like, I don't know if you remember the setup for the women's night that we did, the worship night that we did. But we had, our first set was super high energy. So like we had a few songs there, and then we took a break, and then, came back out, we took a break. And then on the last set, and this was on purpose. The last set we were seated
on the couch.
So, on the couch. So we kind of, know what we're doing a little bit with that. Like,
right.
It wasn't necessarily a coincidence.
I checked and I'm like, it's a Pedialyte break. Like, everybody needs some Pedialyte.
Yeah.
Get some electrolytes back in there. But so I've asked this of all the musicians we've had, Kara.
Okay.
How do you handle when you've made a mistake through the song,
the lyrics?
Do you keep going? Like, people that know you and know how they're going to know, right?
Yeah.
But you just keep going, right? Like, you just don't go and you're like, oh, I forgot like a whole verse right there.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, here's the thing, hopefully in that scenario, you have a team backing you up to where they can keep it going. Hopefully there's maybe lyrics on a screen backing you up to keep you going. There's going to be times as humans you mess up. And
right
at the end of the day, the goal is to get back on track, to get people back into the worship atmosphere. And, 1 minute is not, at the end of the song, we want them to connect to God. And so hopefully that's just a blip on the radar that people forget. And it just happens. It's part of life, right?
It's the best people.
Yeah, it's going to happen to everybody. We have this in the book world too, because one of the first interviews I did, I forgot my book title. I was just like, but I just kept going. Like, I come back to it and name it later.
Yeah.
And he's at the end, when he's like, yeah, you're going to want to work on that. And I was like, obviously, because I really should know what the title of my book is. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I'm Chrissy Leonard. And then I'm like, dee. But you're right. You have that. Sometimes you're just so focused on, you're like, okay, I know I got to cover this and I got to cover this and I got to get here at this time so I can ease into my next. And in your mind, you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to wing it from here on out and be good. But I want to talk to you because I know you write a lot of music. Take us through what that's like. Like, do you just get an idea in your head and then you have to build the lyrics, but then you have to build the chords? So how does that work out? Is it like trial and error? Or are you just like, I've just felt this song come into my mind. I'm going to build these lyrics and go from there? Because I know, and what I also in that, talk about how you built the song for our podcast last season.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's different for every song. There's a somewhat of a process, but at the same time, like, just depends on what's going on in my life, I think. With most of my earlier songs, it was like all God. Like I would sit down at the piano and I would write something out and it would take me 20 minutes and I would be like, I can't believe I just wrote a song and it just happened like that. Right. And then other times I've spent 3 hours stuck on, 3 lines of my chorus. Like it's just, it's one of those things that just happens sometimes. I've taken a lot of like writers workshops and stuff to try and, hone the craft a little bit more. I think actually the song that you love so much, the Vine song, that came from that came from a songwriting workshop. Like I literally, they gave us an exercise to pick a random Bible verse and write from that place. And that's how I came up with that song. And that was a, 30 minutes just sitting down, looking at a verse and it came to me. And so it's one of those things where you never know how a song is going to evolve. I've also rewritten stuff. So like I'll have something in my head and I'll write it all down and then I'll come back to it and be like, this doesn't even make sense. And I'll change and adjust stuff. So it really just depends on the song. And I think that my personal life plays into a lot of the songs that I write. Unfortunately, when stuff happens to me, it's a lot easier to write about it than it is to talk about it. And absolutely. So some of my best songs have come from that place of hurt, having to get stuff out. And it's been a really healing process for me. And I think that's kind of what you saw with the struggle. A lot of that was based off of personal experience. There was a point in my life a couple years ago where I was truly in a bout of depression. And, I saw a therapist for it and I was able to get out of it, but it was really debilitating. And, there were days where I was like, I don't want to get out of this bed. I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, just go about my life because there's just too much going on up here to really process that. And I think that's what you hear when you listen to that song is just everyone has those moments in their life. And sometimes all I can do is just write it down and try to get it out.
Yeah, I think that and we talk about this a lot in books too, because the most painful parts of your story in a book, especially when you're writing your own book, are the ones that inspire people the most.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to books and music, like our deepest hurt contains so much pain that really is the power that you just pull the power from that and just create something beautiful, whether it's in words for books or if it's in music lyrics. Because I know when I heard that song, I sent it to them and I'm like, we need to find an episode for this because this is going on here because this is perfect. Our first season, we talked a lot about trauma and mental health, and that song really played into that. Like the mental health struggle is real.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up because we're like, we should be so much further than where we are. But I got this struggle and God, why can't I get out of this struggle? Like, what is happening here? And it just really speaks to that. Like, we're caught in pain and we're caught in hurt and we're just trying to get it out in, the way we've chosen. For you, it's music lyrics. For Keisha and myself, it is words. But I think that's beautiful that you can do that and be honest about it. Like some of my best stuff came from the deepest hurt in my life. Yeah. And I just emoted it into lyrics. And then I just produced a song because here's what we know. It is going to connect with people.
Yeah.
Because absolutely. Everyone at some point in their life feels that struggle. And I love that you're like, yeah, I don't really want people to know this is my own personal struggle, but I have found that when people hear that, they can just hear that personal struggle. And so we always say, like, we're very open with the deepest parts of our lives because it produces the most inspiration on that. So I want to ask you, Kara, like I said, we do a lot of mental health, and we did an episode last season that talked about how music really impacted us on our trauma recovery journey, and how we just leaned into music. And when people hear that, it's all different kind of music for us. Each of us had different style of music that we leaned to, and it was hard to explain to people like what it did. Like it just was there with you in the moment for whatever genre you needed. This day I might listen to heavy metal. This day it may be pop. This day it might be worship music. And there's no really rhyme or reason, but for me, it's just depending on my pain level of what it is. So I'd love to hear from a musician side point of view, like how do you write songs like that, but how do you deal with the mental health? Because you're a person as well. Yeah. We all have mental health struggles. Like, do you just write more? Like you said, you write. And what does that mean from a musician hearing people say, sometimes music is the lifeline that keeps me going. Yeah. And God is lifting me up, especially us. We all deal with faith. But I mean, sometimes like music is that little inner tube or the little raft they throw at you. Yeah. That is what keeps you going. It's when you can't get out of bed. Sometimes it's what gets you up out of bed and gets you moving. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it's been different for me in different points in my life. Like, there have been times where I really go to music and write and get the feelings out, where I'm like, okay, this helps me process everything that I'm going through or have gone through. But then there are also times I feel like where I seclude myself from music because I know the healing powers of music. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not ready to get out of that yet. And so it's something that I'll almost battle against. Like, my go-to when I really want to feel or just kind of like process is I love a good acoustic song. I'm an acoustic girly. And so those powerful, like, make you cry, all that stuff, that's what I gravitate towards. But there are times in anyone's mental health journey where they're not ready to deal with it. Mm-hmm, they're like,
absolutely not.
I'm gonna drown my sorrows in some Netflix and ice cream and not deal with this today. And so there have been times I feel like I've almost disconnected from music a little bit because I'm like, I can't deal with it yet. I can't process this yet. And so it's really interesting because I think as artists, like I said, we are more sensitive, and it doesn't surprise me one bit that you guys use music a lot to kind of process that trauma and healing, because it is a universal language. It makes you feel. And so like anything that I have written has come from the heart, I'm one of the songwriters that I speak from experience. I don't, I don't try to write music that I don't understand. And so anything that you've listened to of mine is going to be something that I've gone through or I've experienced in some way. And so it's a healing thing, but it's a hiding thing too sometimes.
Yeah.
So Tara, I used to have horses. Yeah, I used to have horses, and my best therapy came from mucking stalls. And it was just because I didn't even have to use my words. Yeah. And, the horse would just snuggle. They knew exactly what to do, or you're grooming them, and, and you feel these emotions coming, and they're big emotions sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes people don't understand the weight that you carry. Right. And sometimes you don't even want to express it in words, but you can express it through your anger or your frustration or, whatever that looks like. But a horse doesn't know the difference between anger and frustration. He just knows it's not content. Yeah. And so one of the things, and I've had horses for the majority part of my life. And I would just go to the barn and sometimes I would have music and sometimes I wouldn't have music, but I could go out there and have the best time or the worst time.
Yeah.
But I always
Yeah.
left feeling better because of it.
100%. I
It
think,
even shows like animals understand it. You
yeah.
know, I always played music for my cat, and it was like, well, I think she likes it. The house isn't destroyed when I get home, so good chance she liked it.
Pepper
Yeah.
loves worship music.
It's funny too, because you mentioned earlier that you like, Italian operas and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And, music even transcends language. Some of
Yes.
the most enriching worship experiences I've ever had were when I was on a mission trip in Honduras, and I was either singing or listening to Spanish music. And so that was such a cool experience for me because I had no idea what they were saying, but you felt that feeling, and
Mhm.
and you felt the warmth of God wrap around you. And so one of the really cool things about that trip was I actually led worship on that trip in Spanish. A couple of the songs. Yeah. So I learned a couple songs.
Did you learn Spanish while you were there, or you're like, I'm gonna give it my best
am
shot?
kind of novice. I took it in high school, and I had a couple songs. Oceans was one of them, and then
Mhm.
another song that I learned how to sing it in Spanish, and it was so cool to be able to see the people in Honduras worshiping and like
Mhm.
understanding and
Light up. Yeah.
yeah. And it was cool because you could see our people worshiping to the Spanish music, and you could see them worshiping to it. And it was just an experience I'll never forget. Because music does transcend language. And
Yes.
in that moment, we were not two different cultures, two different like the language barrier was there, but we were all people worshiping. And that was
Yeah.
just a really cool experience to
beautiful.
have.
That's beautiful. So, Kara, I'd love to know, like, who are some of your favorite bands and musicians that you like to listen to, like, that you're not leading or you're not taking part in?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I talked about Lauren Daigle. I love her. I listen to a lot of her stuff. Oh gosh, I should have like prepared because I knew you were going to ask me a question like this. Honestly, a lot of like the major bands that are out there, like I've been listening just to Christian music for so long that it's kind of just ingrained in there.
Right.
Oh gosh, what's her name? Leanne Crawford, I think that's her name.
Mhm.
Oh, she is just like perfection personified. I love listening to her music.
I know I always say, like, when I'm playing my playlist and I'm going about my business, when Tasha Cobbs Leonard comes on,
Oh my
I'm
God.
like,
Tasha
Tasha.
Cobbs.
right. I'm like,
She's
I gotta stop what I'm
incredible.
doing and just be in the moment. Like, it's funny how you're just like, I know that.
I'm a
I know
Jacqueline
that
Carr
voice.
girl.
Yeah,
Who is that?
Jacqueline Carr.
Jacqueline Carr.
Carr.
Okay.
Yeah, we have gotten to see her twice perform, and she absolutely just kills it musically. So
See, I
yeah,
snuck that one in on you, Kara.
Caitlin, I was going to say, always love a CC Winan.
Oh, yeah.
She's
If you-
amazing.
yeah, if you don't love CC, there's something wrong with you. And I was going to say one more, but hold on, I can't remember her last name.
She's like, gotta go to my playlist.
Yeah.
I'm on my playlist, but I can't remember her last name. She's fairly new, but I think she's more like mainstream, but she can sing a gospel song. Hold on 1 second. Let me get her, because I'll say the
We'll
wrong
come back.
name. Yeah.
We'll come back to you, Keisha. We'll come back to you.
I was going to say one of the newer artists that I've really liked lately, her name's Megan Woods. She's incredible. She has a song called The Truth, and Oh God, it is like the first opening line is like, how many times have I heard the same lies before you start to believe it?
Oh, girl,
Oh.
that's a trauma.
I know.
That's the start of a trauma counseling session right there.
Listen, her music is incredible. And like, if you listen to one of her songs, listen to that song, The Truth. It's so good.
The truth.
And it just sticks with you because it's, I don't know. It's a heart
Getting
song.
out my Post-it note to write it down here.
I know.
The Truth.
There's a new group and they're like rock girls, 3 girls or 4 girls in the band, and they're really good worship music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot think of their name
Kara,
either.
I know we talked about you writing songs, which you do very well. Now, do you commission songs for people?
I haven't necessarily done that. It's been a thought. I mean, we've even had conversations about that. Because it's one of those things where most of the time I can take a premise and kind of run with it. Like, for example, The Struggle, I kind of got that from, you told me that you were going to be talking about a lot of trauma and, mental health stuff. And I was like, oh, I've got a song for that for sure. So it's definitely something I've considered before and I would be open to it. But I have not done it yet.
Well, you may be getting another order from us, but tell people where they can contact you. And listen, she said she's open to commissioning songs for people. So, but you got to give the artists their due credit. So tell us where people can find you and definitely your YouTube channel, because I know you're still putting stuff out there on YouTube.
Yeah. So my Instagram is JonesK11. I don't put a ton of my music on there, but if anyone needs to message me, they can always do that.
Okay.
And then my YouTube, let me pull this up real quick. Okay. My YouTube is at Kara, Kara Jones 2893. And I have some of my personal songs on there. I have some covers on there. And that's where The Struggle is if you guys want to check that out.
Yeah. Go get that song. Listen to that song and we'll point you in the podcast one. But we definitely would love for you to submit another song for this season. And Keisha and I will be contacting you because we actually do have some things that we just want someone to write songs for the things we do. We've reached that point where we want that. And girl, I've always said I'm going to need somebody to write me an entrance song because
there you go.
I want to have my own thing coming out when I come out on there. But we've loved having you here today, Kara. I think you're an amazing person. You're an amazing artist. And I've loved the in-depth behind the musician scene that you gave us today and how you approach that. I think people will be like, well, yeah, you know what? It's not just they're out there going like, yeah, here we go. Here's a song. There's a lot of fun with that. So thank you for coming for us today. We'd love to have you back. We're talking about season 3, having people come on and perform. So hopefully you would be open to that.
Yes.
You just come on and just belt it out. We'll be like, there's that note we told you she had.
Well, we also know that Kara's building a songbook, so we'll be happy to publish that as well.
Yeah.
So coming in this future, maybe this year. Let's get that done.
Yeah. We're all about putting the songbooks out, Kara. We'd love to do that for you, but we're honored to have you on our podcast. And absolutely. I know that God is just going to use you in amazing ways. And listen, again, you need a song written, contact Kara. She gave you her stuff. And so thank you for being here. And listen, you never know where the conversations are going to go. So stay uncharted. And until we see you next time.
Hey, this is Keisha. It's important that you leave your comments because we'd love to know about it. We'd also like for you to subscribe, like, share, and tag. See you next time.
Hi, this is Chrissy. Thanks so much for watching our episode today. Be sure to stay tuned for our featured song. Can't wait to see you next week.
Where are you? I've been searching so long. With these eyes I can see. Don't know what I've done wrong to lose you. Where are you? I've been trying so hard, but I can't escape the pain. Can't look past my guilt and shame to find you. I've been shaking my head, trying to understand what you're planning for me. Tell me what's your plan for me. So where are you when the pressure's stifling, when it's killing me inside? Lord, I'm crying out for you to hear me. I've been shaking my head, trying to understand what you're planning for me. Tell me what's your plan for me. I've been wondering, waiting for you to come and save me, but that's not how it works. There's a purpose for your hurt. So where are you? Are you up on Calvary, fighting giants and valleys? Are you parting the Red Sea? I believe, I believe, I believe, yeah, I believe, oh, I believe, I believe, I believe.
So then, guys, in